Welcome to the Where Rural Matters podcast, the official podcast of the Texas Rural Education Association. Here, we spotlight the people, policies, and programs making a difference in rural schools across Texas. TREA, Where Rural Matters.
Hello, and welcome to another edition of TREA Podcast, Where Rural Matters. And we appreciate your joining in on another one of our podcasts. I'm excited today. With me today, I have Luke Bourgeois, the Executive Director of the Shared Dual Credit for Lamar State Colleges. And I'm going to, first of all, ask Luke to just talk a little bit about himself and explain what that means, explain that structure of the Lamar State Colleges. Luke, welcome.
Oh, thank you, Bill. I really appreciate being here today. We're very excited to be a part of this. Let me tell you a little bit about myself, and I'll tell you about this shared partnership that we have. I was a higher ed teacher back in 2004, fresh out of college. Of course, I knew everything at that time. I've only learned how little I know as I've gotten older. But they put me first class that I ever did. They were like, we like the look of you. We're going to put you in front of these high school students teaching some dual credit computer networking courses. And I thought, well, hey, that'll be great. I'll be so good at this. And little did I know that was punishment detail for the college that I was in. Doing dual credit was the job that nobody wanted to do. And, nobody told me. So I just did it and ended up liking it. I was an IT person at the time, and just over the next few years, thinking that this would be a stopping point for me in education. I would head on to go work for Microsoft or Cisco or wherever. I ended up falling in love with students, falling in love with teaching, and falling in love with higher ed and really K-12, because I spent the majority of my time in a K-12 classroom on a K-12 campus. And I spent about the first 7 years of my higher ed career only working at a K-12 CTE only campus. And it was a district where they had a CTE building that all their high schools would go to. It was just 2 high schools, but they would send their kids there. So every student there was sort of at the time, the out of fashion, not really, these are where the students who don't really have college in their future are going. And as you've seen, throughout CTE, as that pendulum has shifted to where we were like, well, maybe there's something to CTE education. Maybe we should really, focus on that, because that is some great higher ed or some great, salaries and jobs and a workforce need for sure. And so I got to really be in on the ground floor of that CTE pendulum, doing dual credit in an unmet need space. And so it was really a blessing to be a part of that, and a blessing to be a part of that first wave of, for the longest time, higher ed was such a house on a high hill or an ivory tower mentality of This is the way that we do it. You come to us, take it or leave it. If you don't like it, you can fail. You can, go find something else. And CTE really created this wave in higher ed of, we're going to take what we know and bring it down to you. We're going to empower local high schools to teach dual credit. We're going to start students getting in touch with the workforce while they're in high school. And we're going to try to merge some of these K-12 goals and outcomes with some higher ed outcomes, and see if we can spend money once to get outcomes met for both places. And so we got to really be in on the ground floor of that, and it's been a real blessing, and I'm very blessed to be a part of that.
Awesome. Tell us about Lamar State Colleges and how that's set up.
So in my title, I'm going for the longest title of all time. I think I can make it a little bit longer, but Executive Director of Shared Dual Credit. It's pretty good as far as length goes. But what that means is Shared Dual Credit. We have multiple campuses that offer different programs to where if you to combine some of these resources. So, we're a 2-year state college. So first off, let me talk about the difference between a state college and a community college just briefly. A community college is supported primarily by taxing districts and a tax base, And the design is for you to be attached to that community, and you support and serve that community. A state college is a statewide campus. The reason that that's important is that it allows us to go across the state. There are 4 state colleges in the state of Texas, and 3 of them start with Lamar. So I'm a part of that shared campus piece within Lamar. So it allows us to go across the state where we're not bound to a local community. In addition to that, we are the only state college system that's a part of a university system. So we're a part of the Texas State University system. And yes, that is the Texas State out of San Marcos. It has Lamar, it has Sam Houston, it has Sul Ross. Those are university systems, and we are in the same one. So we're basically a 2-year school that has 4-year partners within our systems. These aren't like articulation agreements that we have. They literally are within the same system that we are. And so that is unique to our system as well. And it gives us opportunity to create some things and some pathways that are a very streamlined process into dual credit, and how we reach down and grab the students that may not be heading towards a 4-year degree. And what I mean by that, Bill, is when we're looking at a student, there's going to be a number of students who are on their way to a 4-year degree anyway. If you look at your top 10% data across Texas, it says those students are probably going to be okay with or without dual credit. What we're really shooting for is that middle 50%. We're reaching down into the lower success rates of students to where we're upskilling them. We're grabbing maybe the students who did not have a plan, maybe the students who maybe had a plan but didn't get into the college that they wanted, and we're giving them a track and a pathway to completion that starts with CTE dual credit in their high school. We get them with a level 1 certificate to where they can graduate with us. Then they can finish their 2-year degree. Then they can take that 2-year degree, plug it in to a BAAS, Bachelor of Applied Arts and Sciences, plug it into an industrial technology degree, plug it into the various pathways that we have that either land them at Lamar University, Sam Houston, Sul Ross, any of our 4-year partners, to where they'll take those credits that you started getting while you were in your welding class in high school, while you were in your, criminal justice class in high school, or whatever program that you have, and that go all the way to a 4-year degree, but you don't have to start all over with it. And I'm talking even your welding. So we have a program that will take welding students and we'll teach them production management. We'll teach them how to, get your idea from a napkin to the showroom floor. And they take that 2-year degree, it plugs straight in, and you start off as a junior, and you're in industrial engineering classes, basically, is what it would effectively be. And you can get your 4-year degree without having to retake anything other than, in some cases, you do have to finish your core. So those would be the academic courses that you definitely do have to take once you start your 4-year degree pathway. But,
Right.
Our pathway is that no matter where you are on the train, we will upskill you to increase your learning. You can go get a job now, or you can continue on with your education to raise the ceiling on your earning potential to get that. Okay, you got your level 1 certificate while you're in high school. There's an opportunity for that 2-year degree. Okay, you've got your 2-year degree. There's an opportunity for that 4-year degree. And so those are the pathways that we lay out, and that's really how our system works within the plans that we have.
Okay. Well, so we have 400 school districts. That's over 400 high schools in TREA membership. Are you statewide? How do you do this? Through video, in person? How does that work? Nuts and bolts of it.
Yes, sir. We are statewide, and what we do is we have primarily we have this pathways book. That what I do is I look at programs of study that you know TEA puts out, and I look at what they have in that program of study, and it could be anything from cosmetology to criminal justice to welding to patient care technician, anything that possibly could exist on a high school campus. And I look across all of my degrees across multiple state colleges within my system, and I say which one has this program that is close enough. So, for
Okay.
example, if you've got a patient care technician program, if you've got an ag mechanical program, I will look at Lamar Institute of Technology, and I'll say, Lamar Institute of Technology has one of the most fantastic welding programs in the state. These students go off to do great things. We're super tied. It's a big oil and gas where we are. So we're teaching students how to be a part of that energy component, to go work at ExxonMobil, to build things, to be part of these contractors of these massive builds, even offshore and even underwater, different things like that. I mean, there's a
Wow.
ton of welding opportunities. And
Right.
so what we look at is, what do you do at your high school? What are your qualifications as a high school teacher? And we try to, step one, empower that local high school to teach the kids up and to the point that they're in high school. And so what I mean by that is they're not going to get the full degree while they're in high school. You're going to go for your, if it's a welding program, which it most likely, what we see in rural places it's more the ag mechanical pathway, but we would look at that first class of intro or principles, and then going into ag mech and metal, different, all the way to practicum. And we would match the courses at our IHE, our school, and say which one matches what you do best, and we will enroll your students into what they're doing. Now, if we can find a qualified instructor, that's the easy button, right? They've got a qualified
Right.
instructor already who's teaching them welding. We will credential them. We credential them through one of three ways. Number one, education. If you have the right degree, that's easy, right? We're higher ed. You've got a higher ed degree. Perfect. If you don't have that, we look at certifications. Are you shooting for your IBCs, the IBCs that are on the TEA list? So if you're doing a program of study and you're in welding and you're going for your D9 certification, your D9-1, uh, uh, if that's what you're doing, then that's what we need you to have. So if you're trying to get your students to be an AWS certified welder, we hope that you as an instructor have the certification that you're
Right.
pushing your students to get, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
And so if you don't have that, so number one, education. Number two, certification. Number three, work experience. What kind of work experience would qualify you to teach this class? The only thing that doesn't work with work experience is teaching. Teaching doesn't count as work experience. I need to know what you've welded. I need to know what
Right.
you've built, what you've done in industry. And that's a pretty big swath of opportunity. We just need to look at it. And
Okay.
so those are the three ways that we credential those remote faculty. Now, last ditch effort, and this is where distance does play a factor, but what we've done with different places is we'll get these instructors to weld for our program. And meaning, like, we'll just connect them. Hey, weld me this. And I wish I was a smarter person in welding and could name a thing that you would actually weld, but I'm not a welder. So weld me this. And our guys would look at it and say, well, you know what you need to work on? You need to work on X, Y, and Z. If you go down and get some training, or better yet, come to our campus, we will actually upskill the local teachers to qualify and credential them to be able to teach. And we'll do that free of charge to those teachers. We'll teach them how to weld, assuming that there's a basis to start from. We're not
Right.
pulling someone off the street. We're taking a welding teacher who's teaching welding or ag mech and
Refining it.
metal,
Yeah.
and then we're upskilling them to do that. Then from there, if it's your district, your welding lab with your equipment and your instructor, it gives us the opportunity to give these courses for zero cost to the student. So I will create a pathway where every student at your district can be taught by your teacher. We do have to align some things. We do have to make sure that it's the right book, the right things, so there's some curriculum pieces that have to happen.
Right.
But once that program's established and your teacher's credentialed, they will go through this pathway. They will get a level one certificate, have the opportunity to drive down here if they want to, and walk in graduation, but they will actually get a college diploma while they're still in high school, and it will be absolutely free to the students. So that's the program that we create. And we do that with
Okay.
every possible program we can make. So I gave welding, but we have about 30 that are programs of study matched to level one certificates that we have. And if your teacher can teach it with your equipment, your lab, it's free to your students.
Okay. Awesome. Okay. So I'm assuming that the superintendent and or the board would need to enter into an MOU with Lamar State College.
That is correct. So we start off with that MOU and it covers different things. It's a swath of things, everything from House Bill 8, with that fast, free, and reduced lunch funding piece. How are you going to get books? It covers, because there's a book expense associated with it that we do our best to use what the district is already using. But,
Right.
when it comes time, if you have a 20-year-old book and new standards come out, it is up to us to ensure that those standards are being taught in the classroom. So how are we
Right.
covering this? There's definitely a curriculum alignment. There's going to be things that we need from you guys, or from these districts, such as, well, what resources do the students have? I have to look at your classroom. If you say you have a welding classroom, I need to know that it's actually a welding classroom. So I'm going to come visit you.
Right.
I'm going to come walk through. I'm going to come look at it. And all this is going to be outlined in the MOU.
Right.
And by the way, it's not always smooth, but we do get it done. I went to a district in Deep East Texas one time where they were like, we have a great welding teacher. And indeed, they did. They had a fantastic welding teacher. They had one welding machine. They had a room that was basically four walls and a roof, and their ventilation system consisted of opening up that door and turning on that fan. So we looked at it and we were like, okay, how can we get them where they need to be? We wrote some grants for them, got them about $300,000 worth of equipment. Now it is a top flight welding facility. They're cranking out great kids. It's still a very, very small district, so it's not like a large amount of graduates, but we're talking about very effective program because, number one, they had a great teacher, and that's always where it starts. Doesn't matter what program you have, it always boils down to the quality of instruction in that classroom, which we hope to support, but really, it comes down to that teacher loving being there and being skilled and, getting joy out of turning those lights on for students and teaching them those things. So that's really where it starts. But we were able to get that district some resources. Helped them write a grant, and which is also something that we do. We are pretty good at getting JET grant funding. And usually our districts win those regularly because we write a bunch for districts. They won't be through us. We just help the district write and submit those grants because we can only win one, but every one of our district partners can win one as well. So we definitely put their name on it to make sure that it's them submitting it, not us, so that they can win that. And we do help with things like that because we have some great grant writers on staff that help with things.
So it sounds to me like, and I know some schools already enter into agreements, dual credit agreements with other community colleges and other even universities, but it sounds like you definitely have a little different angle or different take. Can school districts in Texas have more than one MOU with different colleges or entities?
Yes, that's a great question, actually, and they absolutely can. One thing that we don't want to do is we don't want to do something that would take away from their community college partner. We want to
Right.
supplement what they're doing. So, for example, what we run into often is a program that maybe that community college has, but they're not able to credential that local instructor, or they're not able to offer it at such a reduced cost. So perhaps, okay, you can take these courses, but you have to send students to the
Right.
campus. That's not going to be where we're going to get in on, because a lot of places the distance is prohibitive. You're not going to drive somebody 200 miles to our campus down on the Gulf Coast. But if you've got a program that works at your campus already, we can layer on top of that and give it some dual credit, give you some extra resources, connect you to some possibly some extra grant money. And now we've got a pathway to completion for these kids. So we're hitting CCMR points, we're getting them down the road of education, and then we can connect with them to either give them, hey, go ahead and finish this at your local community college, or creating a way for them to finish that 2-year degree and then plug into that Texas State University system all the way to that 4-year degree pathway where we can get them all the way to that 4-year degree and even perhaps beyond.
Yeah.
My favorite story, Bill, is this was when I was an instructor. I taught at a very socioeconomically disadvantaged district. Now, it wasn't a small district. It was, I would consider it, on the bigger side of small, so not tiny, but not
Right.
not huge. And it was, but very socioeconomically disadvantaged. Pretty much every student was on a lunch plan. There were exceptions, and I was teaching computers, so some students, had a personal device at home, whether that was a PC or something like that. And some students, I had to explain what double click meant. If I'd say double click that icon, they would be like, "What does double click mean?" So it was a different, very varied student group. And there was this one student in particular that really latched on to it, wanted to grow, wanted to learn. She ended up completing my program. She got that level 1 certificate, graduated. She was really smart, really sharp. She got a scholarship to a 4-year institution. And within that institution, this government agency came in and was recruiting out of their school, out of their 4-year school. And so she finished the degree with us, went on to this 4-year school. This government institution came in and said, "Hey, we need somebody that knows Cisco. We need somebody that knows Microsoft. We need somebody that knows CompTIA." And these are all the things that I taught in my very small program with like 12 kids in the classroom, CTE program that we had back in 2008. And none of her fellow students knew any of the things that they were talking about. They weren't experts. They were aware of the word Microsoft, but they were learning more, not system support. They were learning other things. And so she raised her hand and says, "Hey, I can do this and I can do this because I learned it in my high school class." That government program was NASA. They recruited her for NASA. She went to work for NASA for 10 years before Microsoft headhunted her. She now has her PhD in data science and works for Microsoft. And, it's one of my favorite stories, one of my favorite students.
That's
Of course,
awesome. Yeah.
she immediately made more money than I did as an instructor. So a little jealous of that, but those are the stories that keep us going. Those are the stories that
Absolutely.
motivate us. And that was one of the reasons that I moved out of the classroom and into administration, was to create pathways for more students like her to get the next steps in education, to where we weren't the ceiling for her learning or earning potential.
Absolutely. And that's part of TREA's mission. We want our students and our member school districts to excel and improve student achievement in all our school districts the best we can. And this is the way we feel like we're doing it, getting them in touch with you. And I think this is a great program and an opportunity for some school districts across the state to at least look at this and see if it would be best for their students. So, as a superintendent or a principal or a school administrator, if I was one of those folks, I'd listen into this podcast. My question would be, how do I get in touch with you, Luke? And let's talk further about, the nuts and bolts of how this works. So how do they get in touch with you or one of your folks?
Yeah, so the best way to get in touch with me is email or phone. Our website, you can find me at lit.edu or lamarpa.edu, and just search for dual credit. I'll be there. But here's my email address. It'll be labourgeois at lit.edu, and I'll spell that because my name is impossible to spell correctly. But that will be LABOURGEOIS at lit.edu. And then you can always call me on my line at 409-718-5076, or reach out. Don't hesitate. And, first step is that conversation and just seeing if it's a good fit, seeing what we can connect you to. And even if it, doesn't work with us, I can help you get what you need to align things. I can help you. You know, one of the things that we do well is we understand what these multi-hat, uh, you know, school district personnel need to ask their community college partner. And what I mean by that is some community colleges don't necessarily know how to reach down to these smaller remote districts. And we know how to get them the tools to ask the right questions to say, here's how we can connect some dots. So even if I'm not your answer, even if it doesn't work out in any way, I can at least get you down the road to get perhaps maybe a college that's closer to you to connect some dots for you there as well. So even if you're like, I don't know if that's for us, I'm always ready to help. My vision isn't to have a lot of students. My vision is to connect students to education because we don't want to change a life. We want to change a family tree. So that's
Awesome.
what we do, and that's what we're excited about.
Well, that is amazing. It sounds like your goals are aligned with TREA's goals, and that's doing whatever it takes to get what's best for students. And we very much appreciate that. And Luke, thank you very much for being on this episode of Why Rural Matters with us today.
Thank you very much for having me, and I look forward to working with you guys again. Can't wait for y'all's next conference. I'll be there, so looking forward to that.
Well, it just got announced yesterday, so it is up and running and registration's ready. So that's our summer conference, and we can put a little plug in for that as well. But that is in June of 2026, and so we will be there and hope to see you there. But again, thanks, and thanks everyone for listening to this episode of TREA's Where Rural Matters.
Thanks for listening to the Where Rural Matters podcast, brought to you by the Texas Rural Education Association. Stay connected, stay informed, and keep advocating for rural education in Texas.